everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Beth and I'm stoked that you are tuning in for this video today. This video is going to be one part of a two-part series. I'm going to be talking all about first trimester in my next couple of videos. In the one that you're watching today, we're going to be talking about what to expect in your first trimester, some of the weird symptoms and cravings and just the crazy things that happened to me in first trimester that I maybe wasn't expecting. So hopefully if you are a first-time mom, or you're planning to get pregnant soon, or you're just excited about pregnancy and what that could look like for you in your future. I know that I used to watch videos like this all the time before I even found out I was pregnant. This video is for you. We're gonna get into all of that stuff, but in part two of this video, we're gonna be talking all about my first trimester must-haves and all the things that you actually need to be able to survive through the first trimester. I was gonna sit down and do all of this in one video, but I realized it was gonna end up being like upwards of like 30 to even 40 minutes long to get it all out. So you guys are getting a double header this week. Make sure that you subscribe and come back to this channel later in the week or in the future, because part two is going to be up, and that is all of my first trimester must-haves. The things that you really do need to survive and to make it through first trimester. So make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. But otherwise, I'm excited to get into some of this stuff today. I actually tracked my pregnancy from the week that I found out. So it was the 5th week for me, and I tracked all the way through to week 13 and 14th, which is the weeks that they usually say that your first trimester has officially ended. So you guys are gonna get the full picture of what you can expect week by week. So grab a cup of coffee. I got mine here. We're gonna get into this together. Gonna be a little bit of girl talk. We're gonna get real, a little bit of TMI. I hope you guys enjoy that. I'm also filming in a new spot today. It's actually the corner of what will be Baby Moore's nursery eventually. So this will be kind of like where the dresser and the change table go. On the other end of the room will be the crib and all that fun stuff. So I'm sure as we fill this space out, you'll see more of the behind the scenes of how we decorate it. But for now, it's gonna be my cozy little filming studio. So hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get started. Alright, so as you guys know, I found out that I was pregnant around the week 5 mark. So this is a super complicated thing, but basically by the time that you find out you're pregnant, you've already lost a couple of weeks, which definitely freaked Jared out in the video where I surprised him about being pregnant, because he did not realize that we had already just like lost the time from that. So it's kind of a strange thing, but around week 5 is when I found out. And at this point, it was really just like period symptoms for me. Like, that's kind of one of the reasons why I didn't think that I was pregnant at this point, or that it could have just been my period coming. Some of the things that I wrote down were that I had acne along my jawline, tender boobs, because that always came with PMS for me, migraines, feeling bloated, oily skin and hair. The only symptom that wasn't really normal for me, as you guys know, is that one time that I did throw up after personal training, but also having heartburn after every meal. It was one of those things that just like, as soon as I found out, I was noticing that I was now like really struggling with heartburn every time I ate, to the point where like I didn't even want to eat anymore because I knew that feeling would come, and it was such a struggle. Stay tuned for later in this week. I'm going to talk all about the heartburn and how I dealt with some of that, but that was one of the first things that I noticed. And at the point of like week 5 in your pregnancy, your baby is only the size of an orange seed. Like, it is so small, but this hormone, like this HCG hormone, which is the hormone responsible for triggering that positive result on your pregnancy test, is like just totally changing your body. Your body has never processed it or felt it before if you're a first-time mom, and so you're going through all of these like crazy experiences because of that specific hormone. So that was the reason that I was feeling all of these things. And they started to pick up a little bit more into week 6. So for week 6, I wrote down that this is when the nausea started for me. And you guys have to know that like nausea is going to be different for everybody. There's a lot of people that say for them that the nausea was like constant throwing up, like they couldn't get away from like being in front of a toilet or like needing a bowl all the time to throw up. I didn't personally experience that. The nausea for me was just like that constant state of feeling like, oh my gosh, like I've just gotten off of a roller coaster and I feel like I need to throw up, but I just like can't. Like, do you know that feeling where you just like, you can't throw up and you almost feel like it would be better for you because it would help, but you just can't? Like, that's kind of what the nausea was for me in week 6, but even throughout the entire first trimester. So I wasn't actually throwing up, but I found that if I ate like every 2 hours and just kept snacks on hand to keep like the nausea at bay, that I could kind of manage it. This was also the week that Jared really needed to start to take over some of the like duties, I guess, in our house, like making dinner or cleaning up or taking the dog out. I like just could not get up off of the couch because I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel so nauseous all the time. So if you are married or you have a spouse or a partner or a roommate and you're pregnant, or literally anyone that can help you kind of just like pick up the slack while you're going through these crazy hormonal changes, take advantage of that because you are going to need it. I also, in week 6, started to get super thirsty. I did not know that this was going to be like a symptom of the first trimester, but you are so thirsty, and it's because you're now like creating this space where your baby is going to go, and there's a lot of water that you need to retain to be able to do that. And so I was drinking so much water. It was like the first time that I feel like I was getting like that eight glasses a day that they always recommend that you get. I was definitely getting, if not surpassing that. I was not trying to shoot for a certain amount of water. I was just drinking as much as I felt like my body needed, and that was a lot. So that also came with getting up to pee in the night and all those fun things, which will slow down for you later, especially in like second trimester. It has not been as bad as it was in the first trimester, and it's just because you were drinking so much water all the time. I also wrote down that in week 6 was when I had my first craving, which you guys are gonna think this is so weird, but it was scrambled eggs, hash browns, and ketchup. Like the trio of those 3 things, like it could not be anything else. Like that is what I needed. And I remember finishing up with the personal trainer one morning, like after I knew I was pregnant, and like beelining it to the grocery store at like 7:15 a.m. because I was like, I cannot go about my day if I do not get these like scrambled eggs with hash browns and ketchup. Like it is so critical that I get this right now. And that was a weird experience because I've never had like anything like come over me like that before, where I was just like, I need this right now. But that was my first craving that kicked in, and that was at week 6. At week 7 is when I started to get more of the fatigue that people would tell me about. So I was really struggling to stay awake at work, and this is also like coinciding with the nausea and the heartburn. This is when I also realized that I needed to perhaps cancel some plans and shift things around in my schedule to be able to really just keep up with what was going on in my body and give myself the rest that I needed. But in terms of other weird things that happened at week 7, one of the strange things was gas. So, I mean, this can happen for women like with periods and hormones and things like that, but it was like insane. Like, that's just the TMI of it. I was like, what is going on? Like, this is not like me. But it's one of those crazy things that happens to you in pregnancy. And I remember, like, sure enough, looking at my What to Expect app, and it said like, you are going to experience this. Like, this is just how it goes. Like, it's par for the course. So just like get used to it. I will tell you that this lessens up over the course of pregnancy, at least in like the end of first trimester and into the second trimester for me. I have not experienced it to that like level, but in week 7 and in those first couple of weeks, it was pretty crazy. Week 8 was probably the worst week of pregnancy for me, probably week 8 and week 9. This was when I was like really canceling plans because I just like could not do anything, honestly. Like the fatigue was really intense. Like I remember like going to work and sometimes just like staring at the screen because I was like, I cannot like get myself to like think right now to be a like valuable member of society. Like I just remember being so tired and coming home from work in the afternoons and just like turning off the lights and going to sleep. And luckily Jared was super like accommodating and just like kind in all of that while I was going through that. But I will tell you guys that it does not always like persist that bad for that long. Everyone's experience is different, so don't let it freak you out when you hear like some of these like scarier parts of first trimester, because a lot of it really is short-lived and it's all worth it because you know that you are actually feeling this way because you are growing a baby that's healthy. So stick it out, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna make it through, it's all gonna be worth it. Around week 10 is when my headaches kind of started and kicked in, and that was when I started to think like, okay, I should probably tell my boss soon. At this point, I had only taken 1 day off of work, so throughout my entire first trimester, I was still working full time. I would get up every day, I would go into an office and sit at my desk and do my job, come home, and then just kind of crash for the evening. But at this point, I like had the headaches for a while. I started to feel like I wasn't just like on all the time. I was also starting to like unbutton my jeans a little bit at this point. I didn't have a baby bump yet, but it was like that, okay, I'm like visibly bloated and uncomfortable. The end of it is actually when I did tell my boss, and I'll get into that a little bit more in the Q&A section, but that was when like the switch kind of flipped for me, and I was like, okay, I need to let a few more people into this. Week 11, I wrote, was great for me. So I was actually symptom free. I had no aversions. I was sleeping well. I went to my first prenatal appointment and heard the baby's heartbeat for the first time. So week 11, glowing experience, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Week 12 was when my nausea came back. So at this point, I had nausea, a sore lower back, my boobs were just like stretching, and I felt like tight hips and all of those things that really were a signal to me that this baby is getting bigger. This is not an orange scene anymore. I am stretching to accommodate this baby. And this is also when I noticed a little bit more of the weight gain. At my first prenatal appointment, I had only gained 2 pounds, but generally a lot of people say you don't even gain any weight in the first trimester. And I honestly feel like I gained all of it in my face. Like, usually when I like gain weight or like get bloated or hold on to water or any of that, like my cheeks are the first place that I see it. And this was when I like started looking in the mirror and I was like, oh my gosh, like I look different. But no one else would know that because I'm like not really showing anything yet. And so it was just like a really weird experience having all these crazy things going on but not being able to tell anybody. So week 12, we did start to tell most people that we hadn't told yet. So family and friends, we were doing all the FaceTime calls and looping people in, which helped a little bit with all of the other changes that were going on in my body and just allowing me to reconcile that. Week 13 to 14 is when the first trimester actually tapers off or ends. This is kind of like debated between like whether it's week 13 or week 14 for the actual end of it. By week 14, you're absolutely ending your first trimester and going into the second one. But for me, in week 13, I wrote that I had nausea, I was still tired, and I wasn't super interested in food. And in week 14, I had headaches, more of that like stomach stretching pain. And then I felt the first flutter in week 14 as well. I remember we were sitting in church because we were still able to have like church services at this time where everyone was distanced and wearing masks and all that. And it was around the Christmas time and we were watching like our Christmas production at church, and I felt like the tiniest, like it felt like a butterfly almost like flapping its wings inside of me, and I was like, oh, like what is that? That's such a cool feeling. So that happened for me at week 14. I'll probably give you guys another second trimester update at some point where I talk about like the first kicks and flutters and all that stuff, but it doesn't become consistent for a really long time. So you're still not feeling a lot of that movement. But the further you get out of the first trimester, the more a lot of these symptoms really do let up. So if you're going through it right now or you're nervous about what it's gonna look like, just know that it doesn't last forever, that you will make it through it, as I was saying. And I wrote down here as well, just like as a final point on the first trimester symptoms, that for me, the headaches were the most challenging part of first trimester. I kind of thought going into it that it would be throwing up, and like that was kind of what I had heard from other people. I feel like I had either heard that people threw up all the time or that pregnancy in first trimester was like the most incredible thing that had ever happened to them and they felt so great. Like I had friends on both sides of the spectrum, but like it's so different for everybody, and you can fall in the middle. You can fall closer to one side or the other side. It doesn't need to be this big scary thing. And I think for me, and part of the reason why I wanted to make this update video is because before I had gotten pregnant, I was watching a lot of content like this, and I had heard a lot of women, at least on the internet, talking about their experiences like it was the worst thing that had ever happened to them. Could not, as I was saying, like get away from a toilet or like a bowl to throw up literally the entire time, and that they just like needed to like stay home and sleep. But like there's a lot of women that still have to work throughout all of first trimester and pregnancy. And so I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like am I gonna have to quit my job? Is this gonna be a full-time job for me? But it's going to be okay. There are different things that you can do to actually cope and to make it through the first trimester. So don't worry about it. Everyone's experience is different and you are going to be just fine when it's your turn. So I'm going to take a moment here and just go through some of the questions that I got over Instagram. Again, if you want to ever answer questions that I'm putting out to you guys for YouTube videos, make sure that you do go follow me on Instagram at Beth Grace Moore. Would love for you to be able to contribute to these in the future. But the first question that I got asked was, have you been sick? And a lot of these questions that kind of relate to how bad the morning sickness really is. So I, again, did feel sick, but it wasn't like throwing up sick. It was just like the headaches and the tiredness and just like food aversions and energy levels being really low. So I would say like yes and no in the traditional sense of like what people think sick means when you're going through first trimester. In terms of morning sickness, like I can't really say how bad it is because it depends on who you are and genetics, like the way that your body is going to react to the hormones, and I can't like predict that for you. So unfortunately, it is just going to depend on like what happens when you actually do get there. But in my experience, yes, it's hard, but it's not the end of the world. The next question that's kind of related to this is, how hard was it to work with the nausea and headaches? I would say that this was one of the harder parts for me. I think that if I was just like at home, and I know a lot of like women and my own friends even that were at home like during the pandemic for pregnancy because of job layoffs or whatever the situation was, or just choosing to be home. But going into work every day and staring at a computer was really, really challenging. You have to really just commit and decide like, I can make it through this, like my body was made for this, like I'm gonna be okay, and just power through, honestly. One of the things that was really helpful for me was letting in a friend from work into the news of the pregnancy really early on, and that was super helpful for me because she would text me throughout the day and just be like, how are you doing? Like, is there anything I can do to help? And that was a game changer. So if you feel comfortable with that, just let someone that you work with in on the news. Make sure it's someone that you can trust, like not to spread that further. It's so helpful just to have someone be able to check in on you throughout the day. And again, like if you need to tell your boss a little bit earlier so that they can be looped in about what's going on, that's something that you can do as well. It just kind of depends on your situation. The next question was, did you get stretch marks in first trimester? And I love this question because I think it's such an important thing to talk about. Going into pregnancy, I obviously wanted to prevent stretch marks, but I knew that my mom had them, my sister had them, and it is like such a genetic and hereditary thing. The reality is that, and at least like from my own personal opinion on this, you can't really prevent stretch marks if you're going to get them. You can do everything that you can to keep your skin really just moisturized throughout the pregnancy because it is stretching a lot, and so that can help a lot with like keeping itching at bay and all of those different kinds of things. And it can also help to fade the stretch marks eventually. But girl, if you are wired to get stretch marks, you're going to get stretch marks, and that's okay. I already had them before I got pregnant just from growing and growth spurts since I was a little kid. So I think I've honestly had them since I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I remember just being devastated when I first got them, even that young. But over time, I've realized like this is a reality of being a woman and being a human, honestly. Like men get stretch marks too. And so if you're worried about the stretch mark thing, honestly, just like do your best to just know that like what your body is doing is so incredible. It's beyond like even just human comprehension what our bodies go through. And so if you have a little bit of like proof of that on your skin, like so be it. All that being said, I did get stretch marks in first trimester. And I got them right here. Before I got pregnant, I had like a B cup, so it was honestly like not a lot going on there. And that was one of the first things to change. It was like an immediate just like blow up, like I don't even have any words for it. Like I was so surprised at how quick it happened. And so I did get stretch marks from that, and it's kind of like underneath and it's already fading already. I did use bio oil and other products that I'll talk about in my must-have video the whole time that was happening. And even since then, they're already fading and going away. But just know that if you do get them, it's okay. The timing that you get them is okay and normal. Your body's gonna do its thing, so just trust it and do your best to really just be okay with what's happening. What was the weirdest symptom that you had? So my symptoms have definitely gotten weirder since I've gotten into second trimester, and I'll probably talk about this in a future video. But in first trimester, I think the weirdest thing was probably the blue veins that you get. And basically, like, what I mean by that is like across your boobs and eventually like on your stomach, like up your sides and things like that, you get like visible veins through your skin. And it's just because your body is working so hard to pump blood to those areas where they are working to accommodate this new life. I remember looking in the mirror and just seeing like blue veins down my sides and like crazy like tracks across my chest, and like looking in the mirror like, oh my gosh, like I'm morphing into like another creature. And I'm morphing into a mom. So that was one of the weirder things that I wasn't expecting, so don't be thrown off by that. It's also totally normal and just par for the course when you are going through all of these changes. The next question is, what week did you start showing a baby bump? I think that I mostly just looked bloated and like almost like you do when you're getting your period, until about week 14. That was when it was like, okay, I need to transition into wearing leggings and like stretchy things because my jeans are not buttoning up anymore. And that was when I first noticed like this has surpassed what I usually look like when I'm bloated before a period. So I would say around week 14. This next question is, how does it feel to have your stomach growing, and is it similar to feeling bloated? So again, it does feel a lot like bloating until around that like week 13, 14 mark for me. I think like the feeling of it is like, it's a combination of a few things. It's a combination of like stretching, it's a combination of like itching because the skin is like starting to expand a little bit more. And like one of the things that I didn't know, and like is totally normal as well if you experience this in the future, is like almost a little bit of cramping in that feeling of stretching as well. That is called round ligament pain, and that's the feeling of your body actually like stretching and expanding where your belly is to accommodate for where this baby and the uterus and the placenta and all of these things that were not there like in the same capacity are now growing and making room for. So that was kind of like one thing that I guess like I wasn't expecting, but found out was okay a little bit later on, is that growing feeling actually does come with a feeling to it. It doesn't just happen naturally. And I mean, it does happen naturally, but it doesn't just happen without like any notice or symptoms. So if you do get that like cramping feeling or just stretching, that is a normal part of just rounding out. So the next question here is, what was something you wish you had been more prepared for or didn't expect? This is a really great question, especially if you are going into pregnancy soon or you're planning on it at some point in your life. I would say that for me, the one thing that I like didn't mentally prepare for or didn't expect was just honestly like the struggle with body image that I would have in the first couple of weeks with pregnancy. I think like going into pregnancy and like thinking about it as like a young woman or a teenager or whatever, knowing that it was going to be in my future, I always just kind of assume that when you get there, you're like, oh yeah, like my body's changing because I'm growing a baby and like this is what happens. But in that first trimester, which honestly when you're in it feels so long, there is not really anything to show for the bodily changes that are happening to you. So there's that combination of like, I can't see this baby right now, and the combination of like, I can't tell everyone, but none of my clothes fit me anymore. Like I'm starting to grow out of everything. Like my bras don't fit, my pants don't fit. I don't feel like I look the same in most of the clothes that I was wearing before. And guys, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't think that that would really bother me or be something that I would have to work through so much in those first couple of weeks, but it was something that I had to pray about and just say like, God, can you just help me to adjust to this, to know that there's new life forming inside of me and that you have a plan and a purpose for this baby and for me as their mom, and that all of that far surpasses the way that I even look or feel right now, and that what's happening right now is actually a really beautiful thing. And so I prayed through it. I remember having conversations with Jared where I was just like, babe, honestly, like I'm having a hard time with this right now. And we talked about it really candidly, and Jared was so sweet and just helping me just recognize the beautiful changes that were happening in my body. But I guess that's the one thing that I would say I didn't expect, was just like how much I would have to kind of reconcile or work around some of those feelings. So if that is something that you've never thought about before, it might even help to do a little bit of heart work going into it, just feeling really confident and sure of yourself. I was able to get past a lot of it, but of course it is still an everyday journey that we really do work through as women. So I would say that that's the thing that I didn't expect. What's one thing that surprised you about first trimester? And this is the last question that I'll answer today. I will end this on a really upbeat and positive note. I think the thing that surprised me the most was just like how much you love this baby as soon as you see that positive pregnancy test. Like in my case, I immediately became so attached. Like I took on this like new characteristic of mom and of wanting to protect this baby at all costs, to the point where I actually did even have to work through some anxiety around the pregnancy and anxiety around ultrasounds and making sure that I could hear a heartbeat and all of these different kinds of things, because you just go into like mama protective mode and want this baby to be so healthy. And so it's a really like challenging thing to navigate in that first trimester where you don't have a lot of proof that things are okay, especially because it is a time of pregnancy where things can be a little bit more high risk. But it is such a beautiful thing that as women, we really are just wired to take care of these babies and to protect them right off the bat. And I know that that's only going to continue after the baby arrives. And so I am just so excited to meet this little one that I have been dreaming of and thinking of for so long, and to honestly just love it so much. Like it's going to be the best thing in the world. Well, thank you guys for asking all of those questions, and I hope that this video was helpful for you or interesting for you, honestly, just about pregnancy and some of the things that you can expect. I'm hoping to do a lot more of these girl talk type videos where I can just be more candid and honest with you guys about what's going on in my life and what I'm experiencing. So thank you for sending in those questions. But I also just wanted to say thank you guys for helping me hit that goal of 200 likes on my last YouTube video. When I set that goal, I think I was a little bit naive in like how much like 200 likes actually is. And my husband Jared was like, that was a really high goal to set in that video, but you guys surpassed it and it's still going up. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and just being so engaging on this channel, leaving comments, letting me know what you guys think. It means the world to me. So before you leave today, make sure that you do like this video, and I would also love for you guys to subscribe to this channel before you go. Every single time I get that subscribe notification, I see your username and I get so excited that you are on this journey with us. So make sure that you do that today, but also make sure that you turn on your notifications or come back to this channel in a couple of days, because part 2 of this video will be up where I'm sharing all of my first trimester essentials, and I hope that they're helpful for you guys to write down for a future pregnancy, or if you're going through it right now, I got you. You're gonna be able to make it through this and to thrive through it. So make sure that you come back for that video, but until then, I will see you guys next time.